Hello! We're back! I'm Andrew Slaven, and yes, welcome to the Scottish Football Show. It's season 3 of this podcast. The podcast that will bring you up to date with the weirdest, wildest, and downright batshit crazy nonsense that happens in our beautiful game. Do our work in sport television, so we might be weird and wonderful, but this is a kind of job for us. So we know a few things. We know we're going to try and bring our industry knowledge into it, and along with that, some fun stories too. So here to help me on this celebration quest to prop up Scottish football, I have up my sleeve TNT Sports senior producer Laura Brannan and the Paisley punter who lives down under. Yes, it's Melbourne City's creative director, Findlay Marks. How are we?
Hey, it's good to be back.
Oh, it's nighttime while we're recording this. Laura clearly doesn't want to scream to the rafters, and you're the one that doesn't have 2 kids asleep right now. I'm in trouble soon. Finn, how you doing, man?
Good. Yeah, I've thoroughly missed getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning to come and talk about Scottish football, especially when there's such bright and hopeful news to chat about regarding the national team and everything that's going on. But we'll get into that. No, I'm excited to be back. It's good to be back watching the absolute nonsense unfolding as it does every season, and we'll be here to chat about it.
Oh God, there's so much. There's actually too much to get through since we've been away for. How long has it been away? We've missed the start of the season. We should apologise, shouldn't we, Laura? To Finn, really. Finn's the one who's been ready, raring to go, but we've been so busy. But you take it away, Laura. What have we been up to?
What have we not been up to? It's been the busiest summer. We left each other, what was it, the start of June? The spirits were so high. We were so excited. We were like little children before Christmas. And then Santa just crushed the Christmas tree and walked all over what was supposed to be a really
didn't know
joyous
Santa was German.
Yeah, so we finished up before the Euros, convinced we were going to go and win it. And spoiler, we didn't. But it was fun while it lasted. I got 2 weeks in Germany. It was incredible. It was heartbreaking. It was every emotion possible under the sun. And it wasn't the end either, because the heartbreak continues for Scotland, because when does it ever end? After that, I went to work at the Olympics. I was in Paris for just under a month. I know, Andrew, you were working on the Olympics as well. And then
I spotted you on the
Paralympics as well.
Yeah. It was so funny when I was working on the Olympics for Eurosport. So I was just 20 minutes down the road where I live in London. It was absolute class. But you actually got the delights of Paris, which must have been pretty cool, like, for an atmosphere. I remember London 2012, and I had like no interest in the Olympics at all. Like, I remember pals of mine thinking, in London, I'm getting out for a month because it's going to be chaos. But I know this is a Scottish football podcast, but that must have been a pretty special thing to be in Paris for a major competition like that.
It was absolutely incredible. And I think I was quite kind of blasé about it going into it, thinking, it won't be that exciting. I was completely wrong. It was incredible. And I think the only thing that can really top it in terms of career-wise will be working at like a big tournament like the World Cup or the Euros, something that's actually football related. But to get something so massive on such a large scale, the Olympics was incredible. And personally speaking, I got to go to some incredible sports that I'd never normally get to see. Ridiculous sports that you'd never normally get into, like artistic swimming. When are you ever going to go watch synchronized swimming with your afternoon? And it was so much fun.
Did you have that same thing that most of us have as armchair pundits of the Olympics, which is you can watch a sport in a discipline you have never ever seen before, and 8 minutes into it, you're like, oh, that wasn't very good, was it? Like, you become an expert watching it. Was it the same way when you were in the stands watching stuff?
Absolutely. I was piecing together bits that we were going sometimes on our time off to go and see the games of these different sports. Went to fencing with one of the girls I work with, and the two of us had no idea what the rules were. We were making up as we go along. We were quite disappointed that the chest vest that don't light up like Laser Quest, and you can actually see when they make contact. So yeah, but I'm not.
And the swords are so wiggly as well. Like they're not like proper broadswords, like something where you could chop a head off.
Yeah,
which would be way more exciting.
It's
wasn't
not like
that
Monty
impressive.
Python where the competitors get flesh wounds and it's blood spurting out the arm and everything like that.
Yeah.
The
How do
one
you
that I
know
was
better?
the one that I was so jealous that you got to witness in the flesh. You got to see Australian dancing sensation, the best hip hop dancer in the country, Ray Gun,
Were you
strutting her
there?
funky stuff.
Yeah, I was
Laura
there
was
for that one,
there
yeah.
watching
Oh,
it.
no
Yeah.
way, man.
Yeah.
Did you also say, like, this is pish, man?
The crowd didn't react the way everyone on TV did. It was just sort of like, all right,
Really?
okay. Because she like got 0 points from any of the judges. So everyone was a bit like, oh, all right, okay. But it wasn't the same, like no one saw live going, this is gonna change the internet or anything. It
I, lo-
wasn't that same
I
reaction.
I loved her defense of it, saying like, well, in breakdancing, you don't really get points. I was like, shut up, man. You were just mince. Get over it.
It's all about
Like,
the vibe. It's what you're
yeah,
feeling.
yeah. Oh, that's
No,
class,
look,
though.
it was a great like month. No football involved at all. I didn't go to see the football side of things. I did want to go to Parc de France just for the sake of saying I'd been, but I thought no, I'll save it for the kind of minority sports and leave football out of it for a few weeks.
So I was in the Olympics for you. Before that, I was in America for 4 weeks doing Copa America. So I was doing all the match replays. Weirdly, like, working in America is a bit weird. They like in the UK, like there's VT coordinator, which will do. It's a funny wee word. You just look after all the videotapes. VT. But I was out there with a Scottish crew, and it was absolute class. Like it's so much fun. Probably the best thing I've ever done was working on that, and I got to do replays on a Messi goal, which was
That's class.
unbelievable.
That's pretty cool.
And it was one of those. I don't know if you know the goal, but nobody knew Messi had scored until like our second replay. It's like, oh, it's Messi, and so it's pretty cool.
So
So I
live
can turn around.
reactions.
Yeah, exactly.
Did
So I've got it saved
you
on my phone.
Nice. Did you get
Yeah.
to watch the Scotland games as well? How was the time difference?
I was actually in London for the Scotland-Germany game. So I went to the Volley in London, which fastly became the place to go and watch Scotland matches because it serves Tennent's on draft.
Oh,
And it was absolute class. It was really good atmosphere. I was there with a good friend JJ Bull and a few other pals. But after that, we were watching it. I remember I watched. I can't remember, I was in Atlanta for the second game, and that was strange atmosphere because everyone else was like, "What's going on?" Like, because they just were ready for Copa America or they weren't interested in football at all. So that was quite good fun. But yeah, that's how busy we've been, Finn. So we're really, really sorry we haven't been able to start the podcast.
do you know,
Um,
can I just say, given the absolute nonsense that's been going on this season at the start of this season and all through the summer, as a Rangers fan, it's more than okay that we've not been around to chat about it for the first month or so of the season. You are both absolutely forgiven, admonished, and we can just
well,
forget
that's
that the
nice
first
of
couple
you
of
to
weeks ever
say. That's
happened.
nice of you to say. But what do the punters say? Probably nothing. Might not even listen. Anyway, Laura, into the podcast now. We're starting something a little bit new, but it's always something that we kind of get asked. We get asked about what we do in our jobs, and we've all been kind of doing this for quite a long time, so we take a lot of things for granted. So we thought we'd find it interesting if we explain some of the things that we do. And Laura, you and Finn got some of your friends. Yes, everyone, they have friends. To ask some questions. And what questions have we got, Laura?
So I think the first one is quite a straightforward one, and just I think might actually help just introduce us to anyone that's new to season 3 of this podcast and don't know us very well. But the first one is from our friend Sandy, and he's asked, "How did you end up working in football?" So Finn, I don't know if you want to take that one first.
Let's keep it brief, though. This is about Scottish football, not about us.
I think I came to working in football a little bit later than both of yous, but I obviously always had a love and a passion for football, particularly Scottish football. Grew up loving it and watching it. But I worked as a video editor in London, not in football, for a long time. Around about 2017, then got the chance to work with Cop and 90, who some of you might know, we've talked about before in the show, who made lots of films around football. So that was kind of my start to it. During the pandemic, our entire production team were let go as people were looking to save money. And it kind of from there, then I've always stayed in football because all of the people I worked with at Copa 90 all went on to different jobs. So I ended up working with like Tottenham Hotspur and Chelsea and Roma and a couple of other different clubs and things like that. And ended up when I moved out to Australia through a Copa 90 connection, got working as a client with Melbourne City and ended up taking a full-time role here. So I do love it. I can't speak for you two guys, but it is cool to be able to get a job where you enjoy the kind of creative side of it, but also the content side you enjoy as well. And it also makes things easier. I think sometimes if you know, you're clipping something up or you're doing something, you know, certain players to include or not include, you know, what is an important thing, what's not. That kind of helps you. You just kind of want to tell the stories that you would find interesting as well. So it does kind of help from that point. But that's how I ended up kind of
I've watched a lot of the stuff that like the Melbourne City content that you put out now, man, and like I don't know what the content output was like beforehand, but it's very, very modern, it's very fun and super colourful. Like I think it's a pretty cool thing for, you know, lots of clubs try to do different things, but I think your stuff's like really, really impactful. It's just loads of energy. It's really good fun, man. So I think you're doing a great job, man.
Thank you. I'm actually taking a lot of leaves out of the Motherwell Media playbook, which would bring us back round to talking about some of Laura's past.
Done it. You disgust me.
There's anything I'm doing with Melbourne City now, a lot of it's been done before by the award-winning team at Motherwell. So
that's segued us straight into Laura Brannan then, isn't it? Oh, unbelievable. No, go on, Laura. Your stuff has class at Motherwell. And you're doing it at TNT as well.
It wasn't my start anyway. I started off, I studied journalism at uni. I'd said right from when I was at school I wanted paid to watch football, and I tried to work out what the best way was that I could go down that path. And I thought, well,
where did you study?
Glasgow Kelly.
Oh, Cali gang.
So, yeah. And I thought, well, I considered like physiotherapy, dietitian. I was like, well, I'm not going to play it, so what can I do? I was quite good at writing and the kind of creative side, so decided to take the journalism route. I was a terrible journalist. I tried it for a bit. I was not good at digging for stories. My specialities was definitely more on the creative side than hunting, sniffing things out. So I've worked at 3 different clubs in my time. I worked at Celtic, Motherwell, and West Ham since moving to London. Done a bit of journalism in my time at STV, and then met Finn at Copa 90 as well. So done a bit around the block, and then now I'm at TNT Sports. So yeah, the journalism didn't go far, but it definitely got me into the industry and got me the contacts I needed to get into the football side of things and the creative side of things, because production's definitely more fun.
Interesting. Well, mine's is, I don't know what mine's is like compared to your guys, but I'm basically a failed musician. I went to uni. I went to UWS in Ayr I did a course called commercial music, and I was I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to do music business, and commercial music's a really great course. This guy called Alan Dumbreck that leads it. I don't know if he still leads it, but it's an awesome course, man. Like it's proper like hands on, get your hands dirty. You have to do the work to reap the rewards type stuff. And through that course, I remember in my 3rd year I had to get a week's worth of work experience, and randomly on our like internet on our university blackboard, a job for ESPN came up, which was a PR and media relations job, and it was a year's placement, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'll go for it." It's media. That's it was a media course, media kind of thing that I was doing. So went for it, got an interview, went down to London. My boss, Sam Murphy, his name was, said many years afterwards, said, the only reason I asked you down because I wanted to ask you about your CV, because in my CV I'd put like superstar till guy from like Next when I used to work in Next, and I'd like sold so much of whatever it was. And I was like, oh no, is that still in my CV? Anyway, that was just Sam, funny guy. But it turns out it wasn't a PR and media relations job at all. It was a promotions job. So it was a creative role within ESPN, creating little 30-second or 15-second or 20-second sort of adverts to sit on the network to say like, up next, it's Celtic v Rangers. Who's going to come out this time? That kind of stuff. So I was doing little 30-second promotions for Scottish football for a year, which was class. I got the job, which was great. And then I never went back to uni. I've never looked back since either. It's one of those I don't know what you call them, those sort of moments where you're like you can't let go of something. So I was at ESPN for 3 years. I went and moved to BT Sport to launch the BT Sport network. I was there for over 11 years. And then the rebrand to TNT, that's when I went freelance for the last year. But during BT, that's when I left like the creative side, that sort of department, and became more production based, which is way more journalism based, way more live sport based. So I was doing way more live television. And as you learn and as you work with more people and as you work in more events, it kind of grabs you even further, the love for sport, because when you're at the heart of telling a story, you kind of want to find what the other story is, and that was something I never thought I would fall in love with. So now I'm doing it freelance, and I'm a bit of a media mercenary. It's even more fun actually. And let's be honest, like we all met from doing the Totally Scottish Football podcast as well. So we were all doing those little things, what, 6 years ago, and that's why
Oh, has it
we've
been that
ended up bringing
long? Oh
this.
my
That's
God.
why we ended up bringing back this podcast. And so all through our journeys, you end up meeting little people, that bring you to certain things. And who knows how many people listen to this podcast? Doesn't matter, because this is the thing. Like, we all do our job and we all love what we do, and we all bring that little element to just this little show, and hopefully people like it, and hopefully people think it's about Scottish football.
Well, that was the other thing that Sandy asked as well with that question was, do you even like football? And
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, listening to the show sometimes you wonder, don't you?
Well,
You can't be doing this if you don't.
I defend Scottish football to the absolute hilt, especially because we all don't live in Scotland, and that maybe some people might bash us with that brush that, oh, they don't even live in Scotland, but we still love the game more than anywhere else. I love Scottish football more than the Premier League.
Oh,
I
God,
love the
yeah.
Scottish
But you
football
feel
over
like
international football, to be honest.
you feel like you're PRing it more when you don't live in Scotland. I mean, because you're surrounded by people who don't care, so you end up supporting it even harder because of that. I mean, I get people in my team at work saying, "Are you going to see such and such at the game? There's a big game at the weekend," and they're talking about Premier League game, and I'm going, "No, I'd rather listen to Hibs Dundee on the radio on Saturday afternoon, because that is what I'm into, and I don't care what the glamour ties are. I will listen to Scottish football over watching another game any day of the week."
I think I would call that the Tennent's effect, because it's like when I was living in Scotland, could take or leave a pint of Tennent's, never really felt that strongly about it. The second I left Scotland, I'd be like, choking for a pint of tea. Oh, I could really go a pint of Tennent's. And that only gets worse the further away from Scotland you live. But I think there's definitely something in that. I think both Andrew and I have got young kids, and obviously with the time difference living in Australia as well, it doesn't help with trying to watch games. But when I wake up on like a Sunday morning or even a Monday morning, first thing I do is go on to FotMob and see what the results in Scottish football were overnight. I'm the same as you, Laura. I used to have the capacity to watch, English Premier League, Champions League, loads of other games that I wouldn't normally watch. Now I'm just like, well, when your time is pretty minimal anyway to watch it, what do you want to watch? I'd be like, I want to watch Scottish football. That's all I care about. I don't care about Premier League or this other stuff that other people are talking about. That's what I'm done. And the thing, what I really love as well is that, like, when we see our games, like, we're fortunate enough to work, at the top end of our various fields in the industry. And like, there's definitely been times where Laura's been at, Champions League games at the Bernabeu or something like that, and she's at the same time still trying to watch a Scottish football match that's like going on her phone or whatever. But
I have had the commentary in my ear before.
Exactly. But it's a genuine joy. Like, all of us love the sport and love trying to big up Scottish football. So hopefully that comes across. But it is like, despite, I think sometimes working in the industry, it's a bit like seeing behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. It's like, once you know how the sausage is made, it does lose a little bit of the gleam. But I can only speaking for myself, it's never really diminished how I feel about the sport and about our game in general. Even though you kind of probably know more stuff going on behind the scenes than your average punter would. But I still absolutely love this sport, and it's what I love investing time in and watching and talking about.
I just miss playing it as well.
Yeah, God,
oh, even fives. I'm actually going to be going to football training this week. I hadn't played for like 9 years, and then I went back, joined an 11-a-side team, and amazingly, they asked for my passport details because I have to get international clearance. I had no idea what team I'm joining. They're asking for international clearance. I'm like, wow. I've played with them a couple of times, like training and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, fingers crossed for me, everyone. So yeah, I love football. I love the sport I work in. But I work in loads of. I've done some badminton this season. It's been wild. So if you do have questions for us and what we do, you can just tweet us at TSFS Podcast, or you can email us at officialscottishfootballshow@gmail.com. So do it. Yeah, get in touch with us. Keep it clean though. We can't tell everything that goes on behind the scenes. I'm freelance. I'm not going to be slagging off any potential future employers XYZ. So yeah, keep it clean, folks.
Don't know how many times you've been to this ground, Craig, but you never fail to enjoy winning here, do you?
I love it.
Should we rattle through the news? We can't hit every pin or every nail that's happened in the last 5-6 weeks that we have missed. But just like recently, should we just say that Craig Levein, thank God he's back in Scottish football, but he has been charged by the SFA this week because I think he'd said something about Rangers.
Yes, so this is after the Motherwell game, and it was a second yellow card that was shown to Jack Sanders at the end of the game. And it's just he's not taking it very well. He's not taking the defeat well. He's not taking the decision well. And his exact quotes were, "Have I spoken to the ref? What's the point? Seriously, what's the point? After the Rangers debacle, you know what's going to happen. It'll be swept under the carpet."
I mean, he's got a point
right?
about saying,
he's right,
in
yeah.
effect, like in the sense of, is there any point in speaking to the referee? Like once the decision's done, I'm sure there are some, people do have, relationships with referees outside of, work or, but you're not going to change somebody's mind. And if you're going to look for a sorry, who cares, man? Like you just want to focus on the next game.
That is a bit ridiculous, though. You're getting cited just for saying you can't say anything to the ref. So now you weren't allowed to say anything to the ref, and now you're not allowed to say you're not allowed to say anything to the ref.
If you've listened to this podcast before, like there's no point bringing Finn in here because Finn will speak 20 minutes straight about how bad referee it is because it's not so great. But we don't.
Let's ask him about the next subject then.
Yeah, let's ask him about the next subject thing. Rangers are going to be back at Ibrox for the League Cup quarter-final against Dundee on my birthday, which is the 21st of September. Finn, you must be extra doubly excited about that.
I mean, it's a headline you didn't expect to hear in the middle of September, when the season's already a number of weeks old. Rangers will be back at Ibrox. It's just, there's been so much nonsense going on off the field, on the field with Rangers during the off season and into the start of the season. But I think this was the kind of the biggest one because it's ridiculous that a team should start the season not in their home stadium. It led to having to use Hampden, which none of the fans wanted. It also kicked out Queen's Park from their first couple of games of the season, which is their stadium. The whole thing was an absolute farce. I think if the CEO hadn't already jumped to join the Saudi League in the summer, he would have been pushed, which is a role that Rangers have yet to fill as well. So yeah, the whole thing's been an absolute nonsense. There's been update pictures coming out of the bits of the stand that they've been updating, and there was a really funny one that came out on Twitter. I think it was just the other night, where somebody taking a picture of it and said, "Oh, the new disabled section looks fantastic," and it's, rather than it being down at the front of the stand, it's kind of like halfway up the stand now, so the people who aren't able-bodied have a much better view of the pitch. But they've placed this disabled section in front of the new singing section, where there will be a section of fans notorious for flying enormous flags. So it's just all that kind of thing. You just like, you don't really help yourself, do you? But this is the joy of Scottish football, like all the total nonsense that keeps going on. And, you know, these things happen. I think Rangers, there's a bigger spotlight on them, but there are other clubs that have been going through some pretty crazy situations recently. Cali Thistle, I'm sure we'll get into in the coming weeks as well. It's just been an absolute nonsense throughout the whole summer.
Yeah.
But some of the clubs have come back a lot stronger this season. It's been really interesting, I think, watching Aberdeen at the start of this season, because the Tailin revolution looks to be starting with some impact and not really looking to settle down.
The Tailin revolution sounds like something out of Lord of the Rings, doesn't it? It sounds almost fantasy level, sort of. I could play what are you playing this weekend? I'm playing the Tailin Revolution on PlayStation. That just sounded like a still game joke. That you play the PlayStation? Do you like the PlayStation? I like the PlayStation. But anyway, what is it? The first Aberdeen manager to win his first 5 matches in charge. Which doesn't sound like that great a feat, but still.
It's you can only beat what's in front of you. No, it's not. That's the mad thing.
That's the mad thing. I mean, skewed because it's the League Cup.
No, I think
it was League Cup, and I think
I was going to say, because Aberdeen probably aren't usually in the League Cup because of the European spots, typically at the early stages. So they probably do go into the first 5 league games of the season, or even European qualifiers, which they'll obviously lose. So they've never had an easier start to the league, I think, going by recent records.
You can only beat what's in front of you. And I think it's I've definitely come to a conclusion over the opening weeks of this season, which is I now think there's some sort of contractual agreement that Hearts and Aberdeen have to take its season about of who's going to be good and who's going to be a bit shite, because Hearts have been stinking the place out so far this season, which was much the same as last season with Aberdeen. And it tends to be whomever has a good season then ends up qualifying for Europe the next season is pretty minging for the first couple of weeks of the season and kind of rescue it halfway through the season. So this is Aberdeen's turn to be brilliant. They'll qualify for Europe, and then they'll be absolutely honk from the start of next season.
And Duke's back as well, which is incredible seeing what happened a couple of weeks ago. What? Nobody's actually told us where he went and what actually happened. It's just been a case of, he
went on holiday to AWOL.
Exactly, at that popular destination that we all love to go to now and again.
It's a good party place, that AWOL.
I haven't heard of AWOL since the Pierre Van Hooijdonk days, I think, at Nottingham Forest.
I was thinking of James McFadden days of Hong Kong.
Oh yes,
gosh, yeah.
What happened there, Laura?
Well, I wasn't there. You said that very much like you know the inside skip there. Not got a clue.
Yeah. I mean, listen, just stay happy for Aberdeen, because what is it? It's only Celtic, Aberdeen, and actually newcomers Dundee United who are unbeaten at the start of the actual league campaign. So Aberdeen second, Dundee United are third. Jim Goodwin. He's coming back. He's came back, everyone. And yeah, it's been a horrible start for Hearts, guys. My God. Second bottom of the table. And they've still got a Europa Conference to get through. I mean, I suppose when we think of Europe, like we're pretty disappointed again, Laura, that our teams haven't done well. Celtic are obviously in the Champions League. Rangers couldn't get through the Champions League qualifiers, which is a hard thing to do anyway. But for the other teams to just miss out, or was it just miss out? It's disappointing. Full stop.
What's frustrating is that no team actually succeeded in what they were trying to do, because Celtic didn't have to. Celtic got into it. They were gifted it. Okay, so they got lucky. Rangers went down to the competition below, Hearts went down to the competition below, Kilmarnock and St Mirren went out. And yes, their fans will have enjoyed the journey while they had it, and it's great fun for them, but in the overall sense, you want all your 5 teams to be in Europe at the highest possible level. So it's frustrating as a neutral to watch that. But 3 teams in Europe this season, though. Hearts in the Conference League, get 6 guaranteed games. That's really exciting. And yeah, you look on the bright side. We've not had 3 teams in Europe in the actual group stages. I use the term loosely with the changes that have now come in this year. But yeah, still very, very exciting to have this. And I guess we can have the same argument we had it last year. Is this the right level? Will Hearts do better in the Conference League? Will Rangers do better in the Europa League? There are silver linings there, so it's not all doom and gloom, even though the qualifiers didn't exactly go as planned.
Well, yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. But let's now move on and talk about Scotland.
It's John McGinn, it's Dykes, it's McLean! This is quite sensational! Unbelievable scenes at the Uleval!
Right, so Germany didn't pan out the way we wanted. No wins, a few goals, some own goals. But overall, it was a disappointment, but it was a great, great party. We come out the back end and we're thinking, right, let's see a new Scotland. And we've gone into this new Nations League. We're in the League A. We're amongst the best. We come against Poland and then Portugal, and it's scratching your head time again. What are we thinking about these last 2 games? Because you listen to a lot of ex-pros and they say there's a lot of positives to take out of the performance. But ultimately, Laura, all we're left is 0 points in one of the toughest groups we could ever imagine.
It's been so demoralising the last few months. I came out of Germany thinking, well, a mix of emotions, but quite angry towards the team, and just really let down because I felt like the fans turned up and really excelled themselves in numbers, in spirit, in the personality and character that they brought to the tournament. We were excellent as a group of fans, and the players just didn't replicate that in any way. There was the heart and soul you saw it in the stands, you didn't see that on the pitch. And I think that was what left me so angry, because all 3 games just felt like the same limp, unenthusiastic, unadventurous performances. Pass the ball back, don't try. You've got 10-minute stoppage time against Hungary to save your tournament, and look what happens. It left me just not actually wanting to go to the game against Poland on Thursday night, which is quite hard for me to say, as
That's
I've
big.
been going for yeah. But I went, and I was always going to go because I've got my tickets booked, and I would never not go, but it was hard to motivate myself for it. And I was hoping that the kind of hangover would slowly disappear over the course of the game. And to be honest, it actually did. I kind of got into the second half, and especially when the changes were made and we did look a lot more attacking, when the likes of Doak and Gold came on, and you're kind of starting to see, whoa, there's flashes here of the old Scotland that we know from a year or 2 ago. And I started to think, yeah, it feels like the hangover starting to ease a bit. And then you just get the same old story. It's the last minute goal to lose it. It's the same feeling against Portugal as well. It's the late goal to lose it again. And you're just back in the same position going, I'm not even surprised. And that's the same demoralising feeling I had my entire life growing up as a Scotland fan. It's not what I want right now, when we turned a corner, and we are good nowadays, but we're not showing evidence of that at all.
We're in a position, Finn, where we're winless in 8 competitive matches now. And the stat is that that's now the longest winless run in Scotland's history. And the last victory was against Gibraltar. We need a big win. We need a big win from somewhere.
To be fair, stats could slightly be skewed there because we don't normally play this many games in a year. We've had 3 in a competition,
course,
2
but there's
as a
still 8.
warm-up to the competition. actually 4's a warm-up to the competition because we weren't in the playoffs this time. So we are
But
playing more
facts are
games than
facts,
normal.
though.
I completely get that. But
Facts are that's how people win or lose their jobs. That's how
do you know
people
what?
lose their positions in the team. And I will caveat heavily with this. I think there's a lot of positions that are up for grabs right now in that Scotland squad. I think we are very, very weak in certain areas, and there's a lot of players that need to be doing much, much better.
Well, before we get into that, and I agree, I think a more important stat is actually that we've lost the game in the last 5 minutes. The last stages of the game, the last 5 games out of 6, we've lost it in the last, or thrown it away rather, because we've drawn a couple, but we've thrown it away right at the death. And that to me is really important because it's like, why? Why is that a lack of fitness? Is that a lack of concentration? Is that a lack of confidence? I think that needs to be addressed more than anything. We all know what happened in the Finland game. That was an absolute Craig Gordon catastrophe. And we were all kind of willing to gloss over it because of the mood and the spirit at that point. But you can't forgive a stupid penalty like that against Poland. And like, I'm sorry, but that the Ronaldo's goal just annoyed me so much. And I know, Slaven, you were saying that it should have been 5-1, and I don't agree. We shouldn't have been that slack at the back. That was so poor that we should not have conceded that goal.
My overall outlook for that game against Portugal was, I think we had moments in the game where we looked like a proper international outfit, but overall, we didn't command the ball, we didn't command the match, and Angus Gunn had to make numerous saves, some very, very good saves. But he stopped it, before it was 2-1, it probably should have been 4-1.
You are joking.
So,
You're telling me
100%.
that we avoided a hammering because of Angus Gunn?
Portugal deserved to win the match.
Insane.
Portugal deserved to win the match.
He didn't save us.
No, he didn't save us. No, of course not.
He didn't save anything.
That's on all the players. That's not just on Angus Gunn. He's not there to save every single shot.
He's there to save a shot. It would be nice if he actually held a ball.
What I did say was, before it was 2-1, it probably could have been 4-1. That's how dominant Portugal were in that second half. And that's how good Angus Gunn was to keep it 1-1. So the fact that it was 2-1, that's why you have ex-pros turning around and other people saying, well, there's positives to take out of the performance. Because if it was, and I think it should have been 5-1, the headlines would have been Scotland pumped by Portugal. Steve Clarke's job in trouble, all that stuff.
We deserved a draw out that game. That should have been a 1 each.
We
parked the bus. We did. But that was the tactics that were required, and we did that well up until.
Yeah, but we
didn't
at the end. So if you don't deserve something out of a game, if it doesn't end, if you don't get anything out of the game.
But Andrew, if you think it should have been 5-1, yet it wasn't, that means we did park the bus well. That means we did do well to keep them out because
it was
a complete onslaught from them.
No, because I'm telling you the reason. The reason was because of Angus Gunn's saves.
No, it wasn't. He caused the first goal.
I think
he should have saved, and he said he should have saved the first one, and he should have probably saved the second one. So therefore, it should have been 6-1.
So what you're saying is, if it wasn't Angus Gunn playing, it would have been 1-0 to Scotland.
If Angus Gunn wasn't playing, it would have been 6.
I think there's the Angus Gunn situation that you guys are arguing about. I think is almost like it's a microcosm. I think of the bigger thing going on with Steve Clarke, which is I personally think both things are true. I think the scoreline could have been a lot worse because Angus Gunn made some really good saves. There were a couple of saves where I was like, I got down well to that one, but at the same time, Laura, the Fernandes goal, he should have saved that, as he should have done to get down to Poland's opening goal in that game as well. So a goalkeeper can both make good saves and be conceding goals that he should have done. But I think it's depending on which way you look at it, it's the same thing as Clarke, because I think, Andrew, you were talking there about Scotland are winless in 8 competitive matches. It's our longest winless run in our history, all of this stuff, right? But at the same time, Steve Clarke is on the verge of taking Scotland to an unprecedented third tournament as a manager, right? No Scotland manager's ever done that. The best ever is 2, and I think that's Stein, Roxburgh and Brown, as well as Steve Clarke. The thing where I think I feel a bit disappointed with the current thing under Steve Clarke is, and we talked about this on our group chat, is before, because Clark's been in charge for 6 years now, right? And you know exactly what you're going to get. The trouble is, I think most of our opponents internationally know what they're going to get, and that's why it's so easy to play against Scotland in a lot of matches, because teams will figure it out. Occasionally, when you're well drilled and things go in your way and all that kind of thing, it will go well. But I think there's almost like a rigidity in systems and the way that Clarke wants us to play, which is there's no plan B. It's so easy. The way you combat that, and what most managers would want to do, especially if you've been in the role for that amount of time, is to freshen things up. You need to try and look for new approaches. You need to try and bring in new blood. And I don't just mean like chucking on Gold or Doak for 10 minutes here or there. Like, there needs to be a systemic plan from the ground up of trying to be like, well, how do we refresh things, reviewing things from the tournaments. The disappointing thing to me is when you listen to Clark's post matches, and it was the same after the Poland game, I don't hear a guy who sounds like he's learning from the mistakes he's making. Because when you look at our Euros performance, it wasn't just it was bad, like it was shambolic. We were the worst team statistically at that tournament in terms of chances created, shots on target, goals scored, goals conceded, all of this stuff. We were absolutely pathetic. And the thing was, 10 minutes into the Germany game, it's like the head goes. It's almost like they hadn't prepped for it being that difficult. And you're like, why? You've had months, years to prep for this, knowing the opposition, and you can't go into a match against Germany or Gibraltar or Poland with the same setup. It doesn't work like that. You have to set up your teams differently. And I think that's the thing that I am most worried about going forward, is Clarke is stubborn to a point where I don't know if he's willing to change. And I think we have to look at changes and getting a bit of fresh blood in there, fresh ideas, maybe change some of the coaches on your coaching team, some of the players that you're giving minutes to in games. I really think we have to start pushing the boat out on that, because that's what keeps things fresh and allows that new impetus to come in. And I don't know if Clark's got that in him going forward.
I think that is an interesting point, though, when you're saying it's not just black and white and just go, is it Steve Clarke in or Steve Clarke out? I don't think it is that, but it's interesting you're saying revamp behind the scenes a bit more, the coaches, the like guys like that. For me, Austin McPhee, right, he's been brought in to do the set pieces. I mean, we've still got Andy Robertson taking them. He doesn't do anything. We had at the Euros.
He does nothing.
At the Euros, we're not even having boys understand set pieces right. We had John McGinn lying down for an indirect free kick. They're not reading the game properly. They're not actually taking the situation and adapting to what they've been taught on the training pitch. Or maybe they are and they're being taught things wrong. But guys like that, I would be questioning them.
I don't know. It's hard to say, because if you Austin McPhee's, got a great coaching history and great coaching career. He's at Villa for a reason. I think Villa's set piece stats are phenomenal. So, if that's not correlating into Scotland, I don't have those numbers in front of me at all. But
I think again that might be an issue, Andrew. I think it's a good point you make, because part of the difficulty of being a national team manager or in a national team setup is, how do you take players that are doing well for their club team and replicate that at international level? And Aston Villa is actually a really good example, because you look at some of the performances and how totemic and important and a pillar of Aston Villa's recent success John McGinn has been. And I would argue his Scotland performances over the same period, over the last 18 months or so, have started to tail off. There's been games where you're like, where is McGinn? He's looking a bit lost. Still one of our most important players, still chips in with important goals. But I would say he's not been able to replicate what I think his club form has been, which is exceptional over the last 2 years at an international level. But that's always the point. But then you flip that the other way and look at someone like Scott McTominay, who's been like fine for United, and he's just moved to Napoli, and I think he's an excellent player, but he's been sensational for the national team over the last 18 months too.
I think the big part of that is like these players like John McGinn, and maybe a symptom as well for Cal McGregor pulling out and retiring for the game. They are playing so many games for a club because they're in Europe. I mean, I went to Aston Villa's semi-final in the Conference League in May,
Don't know.
and he looked dead on his feet in that game. And I had a Villa fan talking to me about him, saying he's not going to do anything at the Euros because he's played about 55 games for us all season, and he's not going to get a break in between. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. He's now not had time to have a proper break, had a proper summer. And
Yeah.
he's gone straight back into it again. Villa are in the Champions League again this season. He's playing every game for Scotland. When is he going to get a break? Whereas you look at the likes of McTominay and Gilmore now, they've got this move to Italy. It's great. It's really exciting. And Napoli aren't in Europe. So they're going to get the benefit of playing in a different league, getting that education, and they're not going to be exhausted at the same time by having to play excessive amount of games. And I think that's where the difference is between these players. And that's why we're seeing McTominay doing so well right now and not the likes of him again.
I still think we're missing so much quality in our squad. I mean, the fact that we've got Anthony Ralston at right back, and I quite like Anthony Ralston, but I don't think he's an international level football player, even though he technically is because he's playing international football. But he's not as good as Nathan Patterson, and he's not as good as Aaron Hickey. So he's doing the best that he absolutely can, and I think he's a total workhorse. I think he's a total pro. But there are better players that can play that position. And I think there needs to be more competition everywhere else too, because everyone else knows they're going to be playing.
And I think you need, especially in defence, where there's so many people, like, you don't want to.
We're missing Kieran
these
Tierney
players.
still. You know,
Yeah, but
you
you can't just put your whole reasoning down to, well, we're missing our best players, because any team would miss a player like Kieran Tierney or Andy Robertson when he's in or out the squad or whatever. But you have to still have systems and a squad that you can rely on and utilize that properly. Because you're making a point, Laura, and it's a far wider, more important point, not just affecting Scotland, but I think all players at that level of the game, where there are too many games. I think it's ridiculous. For example, we still have extra time in tournaments. We don't need it anymore. These players don't need an extra half hour of meaningless football when they're all dead in their feet anyway. But it's a whole other conversation. But I think in this, like you're saying, of course Patterson's a better player. Of course Hickey's a better player than Ralston. It's not Ralston's fault. He's been picked for Scotland.
Absolutely.
But he's not even playing for Celtic. So my suggestion would be, look at that position of right back. And you're like, they might not have the quality or the experience, but look at someone like Max Johnson, who's done well over in Austria with Sturm Graz. Or Stephen O'Donnell's just won Motherwell's Player of the Month, who's tried and tested at that level. Not the world's greatest player, but I would say at least playing regularly. He knows the setup. He's dependable to a certain level. Or you could even look at Devlin at Aberdeen, somebody who's in form, who's been playing well. Again, are they an international level player? I don't think they're going to be any better or worse than Ralston, who's not even getting a game for Celtic. And I think that's the thing where you need to be looking at squads coming up. I get the thing about consistency, but we have overworked players who are too tired, I think, to replicate their domestic form at an international level. And we don't use squad and youth and the context of call-ups round about the squads when they're being called up properly enough. And I'm really worried that Clark doesn't know how to do that after 6 years.
Let me just move on to another point in this whole competition of the Nations League. Is there anything that's changed, Laura, about the Nations League? Because we've benefited from it before, but is there anything that's changed in the rules or anything like that about qualification?
It's more the qualification rules that have changed, and I don't think it's actually official yet. I think it's just what people are saying. It's been leaked.
If there are new rules that come in, then it won't take effect in this competition.
So this isn't about the playoff positions for the Nations League. This is more to do with the World Cup draw. As we know, the traditional World Cup qualifying draw will take place in December, and this will be played out next year. It's changed slightly because before, Scotland were guaranteed to be in pot 1 if we finished third or above, but they've changed the number of teams now that will go into pot 1, and it's going to be only if you finish second and above. So with less teams now going in, the other 4 spots are going to go to the teams with the highest FIFA ranking. So the likes of England, for example, they're in League B. They are going to be in pot 1 because of their FIFA ranking, not because of their Nations League position. The likes of Scotland, who will be in League A, but very likely now to not finish in the top 2, are likely to be as low down as pot 3 or 4 now, with the way it's changed. So it's not great news for us. But yeah. Let's
Interesting.
sneak in through the back door as normal.
Well, the World Cup is going to have 48
Yeah.
teams and instead of the usual 32. So we do have a bit of a better chance.
It's not just Europe they're coming from.
Yeah, overall though, like I would absolutely defend Steve Clarke to the hilt. I still want him to be my Scotland manager. He's done wonders for us. I love the way he conducts himself, and how he defends his team. I absolutely love it. So I wouldn't change him as a manager. I don't know what you guys think. I would like to ask you if you think this is his last competition.
I think he's made it quite clear that it's his last competition. I don't know if that's maybe just because he's talking literally with his contract only running to a certain time and maybe thinking he's not going to get another one. But if he can take us to the World Cup, I think he'll bow out after that. I'm the same as you though. I'm Team Clarke. I don't think it's time for a change.
Then nail your colours.
I'm definitely. I think I'm definitely more of the opinion that I think Steve Clarke has probably taken this group as far as they can go over the last 6 years. So I'm not, battering down the doors of Hampden demanding his exit, but I do think the time to go probably was after the tournament in the summer. I don't know what else new Clarke will bring to the job. You can balance that by saying he's probably earned the right to try and take us to the World Cup. I hope I'm proved wrong. I think we will probably get more of the same of what we've seen over the last number of months, and I think we will struggle to get to the tournament. But I think either way, whether he takes us there, and I really hope he does, or whether he doesn't, I think this will probably be his last campaign as Scotland manager. And I just think that time's right. Like we've spoken about this on the podcast so many times before. Football's a cyclical sport. You kind of can't keep going and going and going. And I think things do need change and freshen up over time. I think it's getting towards the end of Clarke's tenure, yeah.
Well, even though it's been two pretty horrible defeats, pretty, mixed performance levels, Steve Clarke's always had us feeling really, really positive about our team. He's always had that. Something about him that he just has this kind of aura with us, not with every club team that he ever managed in the past, but he just seems to get the national mood, and he somehow has this magic to turn us back into his, make him our favourite again. So I hope he can do that, and I hope we can stay with him. I hope we can stay positive for Scotland. We have to do that. Come on, Laura. Here's a smile.
Yeah.
I know. We'll get you back up for the games again. Don't you worry about it. I think we should call the podcast there, though. Trying to end it on a positive note. So yeah, if you are listening, if you are still listening to this, amazing. Then you can get in touch with us. Remember, send us in your questions. Email them to officialscottishfootballshow@gmail.com, or you can get us on Twitter at TSFS Podcast. So yeah, Flora, thanks for your time. Finn, go and enjoy your morning in Melbourne. And
Thank you.
just leaves me to say, if you are still listening, my goodness, go and listen to something else. Goodbye.